Hello and welcome to The Big Hit. My name's Elliot Hicks and I'm keeping my tradition of some of the more eccentric hairdos that we've ever seen in Big Hit history. We've got a special episode for you today. We've got an NFL roundtable featuring 5 of our better analysts, as well as some NASCAR and motorsports segments with our good friends Michael Surma and Charles Sandus. It's going to be a good one. Stay tuned to The Big Hit.
Welcome back to yet another NFL Roundtable segment here on The Big Hit. I'll be your host today, Jake Spagnol. Joining me will be Jake Taylor, Will Barbera, Hunter Mitchell, and Joey Chrisman. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The Super Bowl just happened over just 2 weeks ago, but we still haven't covered it here. And what is everyone's overall thoughts on the big game?
You know, truthfully, on the big game, it was a little bit disappointing, but I don't think that's because it was a bad game. I think because the last 2 Super Bowls we've seen previously, the Patriots and the Falcons and the Patriots and the Eagles, those 2 games were fantastic, probably 2 of the best Super Bowls of all time. So it's really going to be hard to step it up from that, because the fact that the game last year went from 0 punts, there were no punts in that game. The losing quarterback, Tom Brady, had 505 passing yards, and that's what the kind of game you want to see. And then this was more of a defensive battle, a coaching scheme, which is great because, I mean, you were still on the edge of your seat because you thought, could the Rams finally get together? Could McVay finally get something going and they make a big play? And you know what? They were driving down the field. It looked to seem like Brandon Cooks had that catch. He had that drop. Goff had that terrible pass for that interception. They robbed Stephon Gilmore of MVP. That was my biggest concern from the takeaway from the game.
I agree. I was very disappointed. I mean, it was probably the most boring Super Bowl I've ever watched in my entire life. And you know, it's one of those things. I'm a football fan, so I can appreciate a defensive battle. So it was cool from that standpoint. But like you said, the past 2 Super Bowls were so much fun to watch. It's especially the last one. And it's just one of those things where you want to see more, but you know, I can still appreciate a good defensive battle. I'm so sick and tired of the Patriots. I mean, we get it. You've got 6 rings. Can Brady just be done? Like, can he just go make out with his son and just be done already? But you know, you gotta respect greatness. But it's getting hard after a while. So very disappointed. But you know, overall, it is what it is.
I want to disagree with you on the MVP thing. I think Edelman did deserve MVP. I think any time that offense needed a play, any time there was a 3rd down, any time that they needed to get something to ice that game, Edelman was there. And he didn't put up the same stats that some of the wide receivers have in the past, but it was just that big play factor. And Stephon Gilmore did have that one big play. But other than that, you didn't really hear from him that much.
He had a forced fumble.
Yeah,
he had 10 tackles.
He had a couple good
Yeah, he had like 6 tackles, a forced fumble.
Especially in a defensive matchup.
Yeah,
the guy that doesn't even record a touchdown, but he has 180 receiving yards versus a guy who, you know, makes several key defensive plays. I agree with Jake on that. I think Gilmore definitely got robbed.
Because the Rams in this regular season, they were in the top 10 offenses of all time by efficiency and scoring. I think they were the 5th highest scoring team in NFL history, and for them to score 0 touchdowns and Stephon Gilmore with a forced fumble and interception, the game-winning interception, and then the 10 tackles and then the pass deflections, he really kind of shut down. So that's the only reason why I think that. But obviously Edelman was a huge key offensively.
Yeah, you can't take anything away from him.
Yeah, he had more yards than the whole Rams in the first half. So.
To pretty much go off with he said about it being boring. What makes a game exciting is offensive scoring. You look back at the Rams and Chiefs game. That game had more offensive scoring than pretty much anybody else, like 50-50, like both of them over 50 points. You had Patrick Mahomes for like over 500 yards, like Jared Goff over 400 yards. The Super Bowl was boring. Why? Because it was a defensive game. You take a really good defense like the Rams with like Aaron Donald. Then you have Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, Keith Talib. And then you have the Patriots defense, which has a very good coach, by the way. Bill Belichick, one of the best coaches in the NFL, probably ever. And then you just go at it, and then it ends up being 13-3 at the end, and nobody's excited at all. But then again, offensive wins games, but defenses win championships, and that's the big thing about it. And that's why the Patriots won, because Belichick, again, Sean McVay, a very young coach, but is also very good. You know, one of the youngest coaches to ever make it to the Super Bowl. Sure. But he's dealing with a legend here in Belichick. So obviously Belichick out-schemed him, you know, took his offense down, didn't let him score more than 3 points in the game, and Patriots won the Super Bowl for the 6th time. Now tied with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and which is as a Steeler fan, I don't really like that. But now we gotta see where this goes from there.
I agree. I think Stephon Gilmore should have got it. I think just in a defensive game, when it's that low scoring, it has to go to a defensive player, and it usually doesn't happen. Usually always goes for a quarterback, same with MVP. So we know obviously free agency doesn't happen until the middle of March, but teams can still deal, just the paperwork can't be done. But the first thing we heard for sure is that Joe Flacco is leaving the Ravens, is getting traded to the Denver Broncos. Now, how do we feel about that? Because now Lamar Jackson's, now he's the man in Baltimore.
Well, I will say this. Joe Flacco has never been elite. And you saw what Lamar Jackson did in the games he played. What is it like? Like he won like the 8 of the last 10 games he played.
Something like that.
And then he beat the Chargers.
Carried them to the playoffs.
Not in the playoffs, but in the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Carried them AFC North Championship. I think Lamar Jackson's going to be a threat. You've seen him in college. You've seen him in the NFL as rushing. He had the record for the most rushing yards by rookie QB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't even start every game. So
Not even every game.
That is the thing that worries me though.
Exactly. As a Steeler fan,
because everyone's like, oh well, he's like Michael Vick. It's like, yeah, but Michael Vick had a cannon.
Exactly.
So I want to see the arm strength. I want to see the accuracy, and I want to see decision making on display throughout a full season before I make a trade like that, where you have a guy who your system works with, like Flacco. I'm not saying they made the wrong move. I'm just saying if I'm the Ravens, I want to have a backup plan in case he's not fully ready to take on the reins.
For both teams, I'd love the trade. I think Flacco, his biggest issue, I feel, is that he hasn't been surrounded by any offensive weapons at all in his career. I mean, 2 years ago...
he had Ray Rice for a little bit.
For a couple years, but...
Exactly.
Yeah, Jacoby Jones.
Jacoby Jones.
He had a running back.
He had Rashad Perriman at some point. Mike Wallace, he was a little bit shy.
Rashad Perriman sucked.
A little bit. I mean, he had his moments.
Pro Bowl running back is what you're saying.
But
for sure.
The best weapon he's had in the last 2 years was a 30-plus wide receiver and Mike Wallace, who hadn't done anything since he left Pittsburgh. I mean, now he's going to Denver, where he has Phillip Lindsay. He has possibly Emmanuel Sanders if he sticks around, and a bunch of young wide receivers with that team. I feel that it was a great move by the Broncos. They bring in a guy who he might not be an elite QB, but in that system, in that team, they don't need to have an elite QB to win. And for Joe Flacco, this is the perfect opportunity for him to show what he can do. And with the Ravens, you cut cap. I mean, they have now their QB's on a rookie deal. They can go out. They have C.J. Mosley's a free agent. They need the money to sign him. They have a couple more. They have key free agents that they need, and they also need to go out into free agency and sign people. They need a running back. I think Mark Ingram would be a good running back for them, and
That's a good look,
a wide receiver. And they need to put people around Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the money to do that if they kept Flacco.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I agree with that. You convinced me there. That's a good look for the Ravens. I don't think it's good to keep Lamar Jackson, but the fact that you might as well just invest in him now, get rid of Flacco, because that's really your best option. But we saw what Lamar Jackson did when the actual pressure was on him. The Ravens had the easiest schedule, and the later half of games, he only, like you said, he won 8 of those last 9 games. I'm pretty sure all 8 of those teams all had a losing record. I don't think any of them made the play except the Chargers. That was a good win. But what happened when he played them again? He had a 0.0 passer rating going into the third or halfway through the third quarter of that game because he's not a big-time player. As for a Steeler fan, I'm grateful because Joe Flacco has a winning record against matchups against Ben Roethlisberger. Thank goodness. He's also won a Super Bowl more recent than the Steelers, so I'm just going to them Ben.
Yeah, baffling.
It's not baffling to me because Ben just can't get the job done.
You watch a lot more Steelers. My only issue with the trade is, I think if you're the Broncos, you got to draft a quarterback this draft too. I think he's a good stopgap quarterback for right now. They have the 10th overall pick in the draft. Denver does. If they go and they draft a Kyler Murray, a Drew Lock, depending on where Murray goes, obviously. I think Haskins probably won't be there at 10. No. But if they draft someone like Drew Lock, you let him work with Flacco. Even hopefully Flacco's a little more willing to work with him than he was with Lamar Jackson. And, you know, you develop him and you let Flacco do his thing. Hopefully you get some wins. Maybe you get in the playoffs. Who knows? But, you know, it all depends on the scheme. But, you know, if there's any Broncos fans out there that think that Joe Flacco is the solution for the next several years at quarterback, they need a reality check.
You're gonna get let down, dude.
That's for sure. But since he mentioned the Steelers, and you know, most of us at least from here over,
Literally everyone but me. I'm looking by myself.
But we could talk about all the drama that's going on with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, for sure.
Officially today, as we're filming, I found this out today, that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to give Le'Veon Bell a franchise tag. So come March, he will be a free agent. And he's talked about wanting to stay in Miami, go to Miami, but I don't think that's where he's going to go. But I'll open up to you guys. Where do you think he's going to go?
I have to say this. Even me, I was proven wrong. All season long, I was saying, you know what, I was surprised we didn't need Le'Veon Bell. James Conner was a fantastic fit. And at this point, any Steeler fan who says that, you're completely wrong. The Steelers are the second to last ranked rushing offense in the NFL. We have the best offensive line in the NFL, and that's just straight proven. That's a fact. You have elite quarterback, two elite wide receivers, and your rushing offense is second to last. You don't make the playoffs without Lev Bell. That kills them. I mean, you can't deny that. You had one season without Lev Bell. You don't make the playoffs. You have a terrible rushing offense. You're screwed. The Steelers are screwed. And I think he's going to go to the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts really juice up their offensive line this past year. Who was even there? Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack. Yeah. He had fantastic run in the playoffs. Naheem Hines. Yeah. So the fact that we even know those guys' names is a testament to the offensive line in Indianapolis.
Well, it really goes back to Quentin Nelson. He had an amazing season.
Exactly.
Continue,
but yes, no, you're fine. Yeah. So exactly, the fact that these guys are household names that we're talking about them, they shouldn't be. Lev Bell's going to come in there and he's just going to tear it up.
I don't know if you're gonna see Le'Veon Bell get the contract that he wants. I mean, he couldn't, to be honest, and like I think you guys would agree with me because you're all Steelers fans. He kind of acted like a baby. It was a little ridiculous. I mean, he keeps getting franchise tag, and there's no way that Art Rooney and the Steelers front office weren't saying, look, we want you here. We just don't want to give you the ridiculous amount of money that you're requesting. And I think he just completely had a temper tantrum over that. Apparently, he's gained a bunch of weight over the season. Yeah, Joey said
he's having the Eddie Lacy syndrome.
Yeah, so I think you really gotta, you know, I don't think he's gonna get the money he wants. I do see him go. I think the Colts and the Jets are the favorites for him. I've heard the Eagles tossed around in there. I don't know what to think about that. I don't think the Eagles have the cap space. Indianapolis and New York absolutely do. I think those are the two heavy favorites. But, you know, just seeing, I think he would be a perfect fit in Indianapolis. I mean, the three-headed running back in the backfield with Le'Veon Bell, Naheem Hines, and Marlon Mack behind that revamped offensive line. Andrew Luck after the season he just had. T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, that'd be a crazy offense. So I could definitely see him going there.
I don't think the Colts are going to give him the money he wants. I think the Colts are looking at it as Marlon Mack just had a heck of a season. And even though it would be nice to bring in a Le'Veon Bell, is it really worth the money to bring it in if you have a running back who just succeeded? I mean, how much more can Le'Veon bring to that offense than what they already got from Mack? I think two teams to look out for who are looking at, they're struggling, and they're playing in the Patriots division are the Jets and Miami. I think those are two teams that are going to look at this offseason and say, hey, there's a lot of weapons out there, and we need to beat the Patriots. Brady's getting older. This is the perfect time for those two teams to jump in here and use the money that they have, and especially Miami because that's a go-to destination. I mean, you look at LeBron going to L.A. Miami's the L.A. of the East Coast.
So LeBron also went to Miami before.
Exactly. It's a place where free agents are going to want to go. So I look for both Le'Veon and Brown to go to Miami, or at least for Miami to make a strong run at them. And then I look at them to also draft Murray. I know I'm probably jumping a little bit ahead, but if they draft Murray and have Brown and Bell in that offense, can you imagine the type of damage that offense could do?
Yeah. And that's a good segue because since he's wearing the Brown jersey, he can start this.
By the way, this is probably the last time I'm going to wear this.
But as we know, Brown has been talking with Art Rooney II, the current owner, and president of the Steelers, and working with everything, and they both agree that they want to change the scenery. So where do we see Brown going since you're wearing
Honestly,
his jersey?
like, the first team that comes to my mind is the 49ers. Because you know the tweets with, like, George Kittle, like, recruiting Brown, and then, like, they need a receiver to go along with Jimmy Garoppolo. And then, but beside that, maybe, like, I'm going on a limb here, but maybe the Raiders. Beside that, then maybe like the Dolphins, like you said, Miami. He lives in Miami. He has a mansion in there, so it's like a 10-minute walk to the stadium.
Yeah.
So if I was him, I'd be like, oh, just wake up, go to the stadium, and go to practice. Simple as that.
I throw Indianapolis in that mix too.
I would too, but like I said, you said you said Bell would go to the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if they're going to give Bell the money and Brown the money because you got to get. I don't think you can't have both.
Because I don't see Indianapolis. I think they're really content on the team that they have, and I don't think they want to give up draft picks. And I don't really know that there's any player that they can really offer up other than T.Y. Hilton that the Steelers would really benefit from. My sleeper team is the Green Bay Packers. Would it not be amazing? I know you're an Aaron Rodgers hater, so just hear me out.
I hear you.
Would it not be absolutely amazing to see an offense that consists of Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, and Antonio Brown?
That's like a fantasy team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham is there, even though you guys might not have known that because he had the worst season of his career last year. You know, I thought that he would have a great year there, so I'll bite the bullet on that. But I think that would be amazing. I think Green Bay. I think they're trying. They really want to prove, because after this whole Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers saga that happened last year, they want to prove that they made the right decision by getting rid of Mike McCarthy. I think they made the right decision because Aaron Rodgers, I think, is a once in a generation quarterback talent. But I would, I think that makes the Packers incredibly dangerous if they get a weapon like that for Aaron Rodgers to get the ball to. So that would be my pick. But obviously, San Francisco, the Jets are the favorites. So I mean, I think you gotta, obviously you're gonna see those teams be involved. I would love to see Green Bay try and get their hands wet on this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go on an absolute rant right here. So anybody.
Relax for a minute.
All right,
everyone just relax. We're just gonna
it pains me.
Get ready for the vein.
There's a vein in Jake's neck that pops. So go ahead.
It absolutely just pains me and disgusts me to see Antonio Brown leave the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Antonio Brown is the most talented Pittsburgh Steeler I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't testament to the players that won 4 Super Bowls back in the 70s, but I have a big bone to pick. My biggest problem with this I have with the Rooney family. The Rooney family, guess what? Fun fact: the Steelers have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 40+ years. You're not doing something right. You were doing something right 40+ years ago. You're not doing anything right now. It's Mike Tomlin, it's Big Ben, it's everybody else but AB. Listen, he wasn't right when he sat out. He wasn't right when he did what he's tweeting and all that stuff. He's completely immature about that. But if you're Antonio Brown, put yourself in Antonio Brown's shoes. So year after year, you're statistically the most consistent wide receiver in the league. Your starting quarterback has 16 interceptions, and he's calling you out. Juju Smith, I'll get there later. Your star running back doesn't even want to play for your team, and he sits out he turns out $72 million, sits out. Your Pro Bowl kicker misses all those field goals. The backup running back coming in here fumbles the ball in key situations in games, and then the young gun wide receiver that's supposed to be your replacement fumbles the ball the same game when you had 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was 4th and 19. Who makes a sideline catch clutch? Antonio Brown. Who fumbles the ball? Juju Smith. Who gets voted team MVP the next day? Juju Smith. If you're AB, you're sitting there. AB didn't have 1 turnover all year long. Accusations of him running the wrong routes, maybe. But all season long, you saw Antonio Brown. It's on me. It's on me. It's on me. Ben. It's on AB. It's on AB. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger earned the right to call anybody out. I agree. Ben Roethlisberger is a very talented quarterback, and he's fantastic. He makes the plays. But I'll say Ben Roethlisberger loses the Steelers as many games as he wins them. You can't throw a game-losing interception in the end zone against Denver. You can't lose to Oakland. You can't let Mike Tomlin tell you sit out. You have to have a passion and a drive for the game. That's a flow for the game. If you're Ben Roethlisberger, if you want to be the owner mentality, you say, "Hey, I'm coming in and playing this game because I'm better." But I just can't keep going on and on and on.
Just to take away from that, what I love is Big Ben had beef with AB over that play that you mentioned in the Denver game, because AB ran the wrong route in the end zone. He threw an interception to a defensive tackle. Yeah. It's like if that happens, you can't blame anybody but yourself. You threw too low a ball. The 6'4", 300-pound who has a 2-inch vertical picked you off. This is no one's fault but yours.
want AB to succeed, not with the Eagles, not with the Packers. I don't think I could bear that.
No.
I could never come back on this show.
Thank you so much for joining the NFL Roundtable with Jake Taylor, Will Barbera, myself, Jake Spagnol, Hunter Mitchell, and Joey Chrisman.
Welcome back to The Big Hit. One of our more infamous segments of last semester came with these two gentlemen right here talking motorsports, and now we've got Michael Surma and Charles Sandus right back here to talk some NASCAR. Well, the most famous weekend in NASCAR was over this past weekend as the Daytona 500 took place. Two of the bigger teams in NASCAR, Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports, teamed up together to beat the Fords and Joe Gibbs driver Denny Hamlin win the race on Sunday. Which racing team had the best unexpected performance and which team had the worst? We'll start with you, Surma.
The team that had the best unexpected performance overall, I would have to say Joe Gibbs just for the 1-2-3 finish and the inspiration J.D. Gibbs has given them with the number 11. For me, the team that had the worst performance would be RCR with Tyler Reddick because he won the Daytona race with the trucks and the Xfinity, and Daniel Hemrick, who wrecked out early, and Austin Dillon, defending champion, just never got up to the front.
Yeah, personally, I'm going to have to agree with the fact that Joe Gibbs did indeed have a bit of an unexpected performance. I definitely expected more out of the Ford teams whenever it came to moving along. I'm just surprised they weren't able to fight back that much at Daytona, especially with the restrictor plates and everything.
So as I mentioned, Denny Hamlin won his second Daytona 500 on Sunday to give him his first win in 47 races. Who will be the next driver to break a long winless streak? Will it be a veteran breaking a long streak? Will it be a rookie getting his first win? Or will it be a career winless driver picking one up?
I really do think it will be Jimmy Johnson coming up here. He has tracks coming up here that he's historically been really good at. Atlanta this weekend, where he has 5 wins, the most out of any active driver currently. And Auto Club, where he had a lot of success there, and Las Vegas and Texas coming up shortly. I feel like Jimmy Johnson's going to pull some strings here and finally have a good season.
Which specific driver had the most impressive run or the worst run in the Great American Race?
This is easy for me. The most impressive run, Matt DiBenedetto leading this pack. He was charging up to the front, doing really great. He was about the lap cars and everything. And then unexpectedly, even with Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and William Byron on his tail drafting him, caution flies out at the worst time, so they have to come down pit road. And even though they had newer tires, they didn't work so much for stage points or the end of the race for that matter. So
this was the last race to include the restrictor plate in the engines, and they'll be moving to a tapered spacer at Daytona, Talladega, and also some elements at all the other tracks. How do you think this will affect future races in NASCAR?
Oh boy, I think we're gonna have more chaos. It will be like a Walmart shopping lot, if you will. All crowded up, no space anywhere to be found, and they will just come crashing down, wrecking everywhere you can possibly imagine, even pit road like last Sunday. I don't have good thoughts about this new package at all. I mean, I hope I'm wrong and we get good quality competitive racing, but I just don't see it with this new package. Lowering down horsepower for cookie cutter tracks at 1.5 miles and increasing the horsepower at Bristol, Martinsville, and all your short tracks and road courses. I just see more chaos and more wrecked up cars than anything.
Personally, in my opinion, I feel that the tapered spacer sort of breaks the tradition of the pushrod V8 running on a restrictor plate, because not only is this just a part that requires a reduction of horsepower, it's also a permanent part that's attached to the engine. So it's not like a restrictor plate where if they decide that they just want to remove it, they could just easily do so. If it's going to be removed for any given reason, they're going to have to rebuild the engine, so I feel it would just be more cost effective to keep with the restrictor plates. But if I'm going to be brutally honest, I feel what we should do instead is neglect the idea of them together, bring the engines up to 1,000 horsepower, and make the cars all-wheel drive. But even then, that's kind of hypocritical, because in contradictory, you're also breaking tradition by introducing all-wheel drive design for the cars.
Well, tradition is something that could be made to be broken. Technology has come up quite a bit.
Nah, I'll admit.
All right,
As good as the push rod is, it's kind of an outdated design.
All right, guys, so give me your predictions. Who's winning at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend?
I'm going to say Jimmy Johnson.
Ah, you're going to go with Jimmy right
Yeah,
away.
he's my little veteran friend right there. I feel I'm confident with him in this race. But, again, with this new aero package, it's just up in the air. We don't know how this is going to go. For all we know, there just could be chaos, like Surma said earlier.
There could be multiple winners in this, but I feel Hendrick Motorsports has always been strong at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I think Jimmy Johnson will come this close, but it will be Chase Elliott winning at his home track. And Kevin Harvick, as usual, leads the most laps and doesn't win the race, as he only won 2 races at Atlanta in his whole career. But I feel Chase Elliott's going to bring it home for the Dawsonville boys in the pool room, definitely.
All right, well, thanks to Michael Surma and Charles Sandus for talking some NASCAR, and our great motorsports mind will be back to talk some of the newest and greatest things going on in motorsports. Welcome back to The Big Hit. I'm here with Charles Sandus, the Big Hit's motorsports guru, who has some very strong opinions on the introduction of SUVs into motorsports. What do you got for us, Charles?
Well, thank you for introducing me, Elliot. I'd like to discuss the emerging trend of SUVs and crossovers suddenly making their way into motorsports. We've been seeing it happening ever since the late 2010s have started with the early introduction of the Porsche Cayenne, and now more recently in 2017 we've seen the unveiling of the Lamborghini Urus, which is still a model that Lamborghini is doubling down on, and in 2020 they are considering using it for actual track use. So Elliot, what do you think about that?
I think it could be interesting to see SUVs on the track, I mean, I feel like it's something you don't really see in any form of motorsports today, so I mean, there could be somewhat of a fan interest in it.
Not to be a jerk or anything, but what if I told you there's a reason we haven't quite seen it yet?
There probably is.
You see, SUVs aren't necessarily like coupes like you see here, or sedans for that matter. They have a very high center of gravity and they're very heavy. They weigh about close to maybe 3,900 to 5,000 pounds at the most. And with that high center of gravity, you have a very high risk of rollover, which is kind of why we haven't seen them, because even the likes of a Scion TC could out-corner something, like a Nissan Juke. And alongside that, they're thinking that they should start introducing SUVs to NASCAR. I know it's a bit preposterous to think about, but this is what they've been discussing lately. You can just go through any Auto Trend magazine and you'll hear things about SUVs and crossovers being the hot new thing. Honestly, I feel that the 2010s may be the last decade where we do conventional motorsports. From here on out, it's just going to become crazy things at this point. We're going to be seeing electric cars, potentially hydrogen cars, and now us Americans seem to want SUVs. Whereas in other countries, it doesn't quite seem to be the same thing. If anything, the only foreign SUVs I see that are actually competitive are the supercar manufacturers. So I theorize that potentially, as reluctant as I am about this, I feel that the other major supercar manufacturers are going to make their own SUV as well, probably excluding McLaren though, considering their science philosophy when it comes to motorsports. It's really up in the air at this point. We don't really know where they're going to go with this, but from what I'm seeing, SUVs are just going to be here to stay at this point.
It's definitely quite the interesting concept. I mean, in saying that they do have quite a higher likelihood of rolling over, that definitely makes things a little more risky. But I feel like that if it's something that can really make automakers a lot of money, that they're going to give it a shot, because money runs the business at the end of the day.
Yes, they're very profitable because a lot of people see them as the most convenient machine there. And while that is true for storage and in terms of comfort, in terms of fuel economy and handling, these are some of the worst cars you could ever get. Mm-hmm. We seem to forget that really it's about that displacement and how the car handles rather than the creature comforts, especially when it comes to racing. You could care less about the creature comforts. It is all about that performance, and we just seem to neglect that in favor of comfort.
That's true. All right. Well, thanks to Charles Sandus for bringing us the latest in motorsports, and it'll be real interesting to see if SUVs end up playing a part in motorsports. We'll see if Charles' hot take of sorts is right, that the 2010s are the last real motorsports decade. That's all we've got for The Big Hit today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
American race formulates itself, but I do know